If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Kaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all 3 books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I've been thinking a lot about the trailer for Godzilla Singular Point, brief as it is, and specifically wondering about the kaiju designs. As you've seen, no doubt by this point, the kaiju designs are very different from what we've seen before. That, for example, is Gabara from Godzilla's Revenge. Would you have guessed it? Maybe some of you might have seen a few recognizable traits, but then you have something like what we're calling Titanosaurus. And I say what we're calling Titanosaurus because the only reason we're calling it that is because of the color. You look at it with its red and yellow scheme right here, and the fact that it's in the water, yeah, you could say that's a heavily redesigned Titanosaurus, but put that picture in black and white, what is it, a mutated humpback whale? So, I've been wondering for a while now, are the kaiju that we've seen so far too redesigned? Like, Godzilla so far is the one that seems to have the least amount of alterations. Based on what we've seen anyway, we've only really gotten a truly clear shot of him from the neck up. But what about the others? Did they go too far? As you will no doubt recall, one of my major issues with the last time a Godzilla anime came along, specifically the Polygon trilogy, was the fact that creatures like Mechagodzilla were so heavily redesigned that they became unrecognizable. And also, Mechagodzilla was just butt ugly. I'm never going to change my mind about that. And I know I'm not the only person who felt that way about those designs. But the thing is, well, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the designs are not the only thing that really matters. You see, there is a reason why I harp so much on the design of something like the Polygon Mechagodzilla or the Polygon Ghidorah, but I'm not necessarily feeling that same way at this point about the massive redesigns in Singular Point, which could change one day depending on how things go, but there is a reason. This actually goes back to a point I made way back in 2014 during my very first review of Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. I had initially said, and you can go and check the video for yourself if you really want to make sure I did say it, that even though this Godzilla was recognizable as Godzilla, certainly more so than this Godzilla ever was, the design was never really the issue back in 1998. You can have something that looks like Godzilla, but does that really make it so? Okay, that sounds a little convoluted even for me. Let me put it this way. The main reason the 1998 Godzilla was rejected wasn't just because it looked so radically different. Don't get me wrong. This does not look anything like Godzilla. If you were to show somebody this design completely devoid of context, they would never guess that this was meant to be Godzilla. Unless, of course, they had a very poor understanding of what Godzilla was, Roland Emmerich. But anyway, the fact is, this was rejected not just because of the different appearance, but because of the execution in the film. This design, as different as it was applied to a creature that shared none of Godzilla's characteristics, none of his personality, none of his abilities. It was not Godzilla in the physical sense and in the more metatextual sense. And if you want actual proof that this is the case, this same design was used in the cartoon that spun off from the 1998 movie, and people love that cartoon. Even Godzilla fans who outright reject the Godzilla movie from '98, saying that that's not a proper entry, Godzilla in name only and what have you, they love the animated series. because the animated series was made by people who actually understood Godzilla and wanted to make the best possible Godzilla series they could, even if they had to use this design. And they did, and that design in that series is accepted as Godzilla. So, design itself is not really the issue here. No, it's not just the design, it is the execution. Like I've said, the anime Mechagodzilla is as ugly as sin. But I always said in those initial videos leading up to the release of City on the Edge of Battle, I would reserve my full judgment for when I actually saw Mechagodzilla in action. Because back then I naively assumed that was going to be the case. Yes, I did not like the design. I loathed it. I still loathe that design. But I was willing to give it a chance to actually prove itself, to make me think that I could look past the design and still possibly see it as Mechagodzilla. If I could see the 1998 design as a proper Godzilla in the cartoon, I could potentially do the same for that Mechagodzilla. But then the movie actually came out, and that didn't happen. I don't know if it was because they tried animating that version of Mechagodzilla, and because of all the bits and pieces comprising him, they couldn't make it work, which wouldn't surprise me, or if it was because they never intended to have Mechagodzilla there in the first place and only included him so Toho could have something to make merchandise out of, which also wouldn't surprise me. Whichever it is, the result is the same. Mechagodzilla is technically not in City on the Edge of Battle. So all I can do is look at the design as it exists in concept art and movie posters and what have you, and judge it purely on its design. And like I said, I hate that design. It is hideous. Had it actually gotten a chance to do something, who knows what might be different. The MMD, for example, from that guy who does the alternate endings to the Polygon movies. He basically used that design. It wasn't exact. He had to make some tweaks in order to make it work, I think. But that actually did kind of work. He actually did what he could to sell that version of Mechagodzilla as Mechagodzilla. I still think it's ugly, but if the movie had done something like that, the official movie, I might have been a little softer on it. But instead, all I can do is judge it by the design. And well, that remains ugly, like I said. But in the case of something like King Ghidorah in the Polygon movies, where he actually did do something, I could judge it based on both the design and the execution. The design I felt was completely unrecognizable. And the execution, he didn't do anything. Despite the build-up at the beginning of presenting him as some kind of horrible Lovecraftian god, basically all he does in the movie is act as 3 fiber optic cables that come down and slowly lift up Godzilla. Whoop-de-doo. So that's a case in which the design and the execution came together, much like in the 1998 film, to form something that simply did not work. So getting back to Singular Point, we have a wide variety of redesigns from the look of it. Just based on what we've seen, we've got stuff that's barely changed at all, like Godzilla and Jet Jaguar, to things that look completely different, like Titanosaurus and Gabara, to things that are somewhere in between, like Anguirus here, where you could basically tell that's meant to be him, but he still looks radically different from what we know. So why am I not as concerned about Singular Point? Well, it's because of what the trailer shows us. You see, unlike the Polygon trilogy, which seems to have been made on a dare to see how long you can actually go in a monster movie without actually using the monsters, and even then seeing how long you could go without having the monsters actually do anything, here it seems like the monsters actually are doing something. Every time we see them, they are in motion. They are active parts of the scene, instead of just taking one laborious step forward, or existing solely as set dressing or something like that. Here they actually are moving. They are active. And since they are active, that presents the possibility that they're actually going to be characters. And knowing that each kaiju has a distinct personality, The hope is that those personalities will be allowed to shine through in these new designs, depending on how the series executes them. And the possibility remains that Singular Point will screw it up just as badly as the Polygon trilogy. At this point, we don't know. This teaser trailer is still the only thing we've got as of this posting. But it shows more promise, and that's the key. The key is that we're actually looking at the monsters doing something. And of course, the monsters are not the only thing we're looking at and hoping is better. We're also hoping that the human characters work better as well, but the human characters haven't been drastically redesigned because we've never seen them before. Unless, of course, you actually do think that this is the humanized version of Moondancer from My Little Pony. I'm still calling it. And therein lies my ultimate point. I do believe that the returning monsters have been drastically redesigned. And of course we have new monsters that look completely weird on their own. But just because they've been redesigned is not in and of itself a bad thing. What we're ultimately going to be basing our judgment of Singular Point on is how those monsters perform within the series. If the monsters' personalities are allowed to shine through and they play important roles in the series and are memorable every time they appear, these could become the new favorite designs of the fandom, regardless of how familiar or unfamiliar they might be. But if all they are is just generic monsters, or dare I say, set dressing like they were in the Polygon trilogy, then this will be considered another flop. That's the ultimate point. It's not just about the looks. It's ultimately about how you use them. And that's just what I've been thinking about regarding all of this. You can feel free to share your thoughts on these designs and how you think they'll be executed in the comments down below. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Kaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.